to the online study session of My Vidya Abroad. Today we'll be discussing the question type listening fill in the blanks. So in this type of questions, you are not provided with any type of options. You just have to directly type in what you hear from the audio in your headset. So let's take the questions from monthly predictions. We'll apply the filter not attempted, and I'll show you how to work for this type of questions. Share prices, right? You can start giving yourself a head start and read ahead of the audio. Click here.
Well, the simple explanation might be that yesterday's sudden drop in share prices, pretty much across the board, has created what market analysts like to call a buying opportunity. It tends to bring out investors to pick through the ruins, looking for bargains. Decision by investors that sellers got a little carried away with things, so the buyers have lifted all the major indexes today. The Dow, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500 were all up around 0.5% in early trading today, and that wasn't a big surprise. The sell-off continued somewhat overseas. European markets remain fairly weak, along with many of the Asian markets. But you'll remember that all this started with a big plunge of around 9% on the stock market in Shanghai, while Chinese rebounded by around 4%.
Right. So in this type of questions, you always first click in the first blank itself so that you can directly start typing. Now there are two ways. Either you start taking notes as the audio plays, but then you have to look down and on the screen, right? So other option is you can directly start typing the answers here, right? Don't worry about the spelling mistakes in the beginning while the audio is playing. You can always go back and check and proofread before you submit. So, and also when you submit, you have to give a quick glance to the sentence and the blank itself and see whether this word you have written here fits here or not, right? So, well, the simple explanation might be that yesterday's sudden drop in share prices pretty much across the board has created what market analysts like to call. તો આ ફિટ બેસે છે અહીંયા સડન ડ્રોપ હતો, that fits here, so that's fine. I mean, અત્યારે practice છે એટલે I'm showing you in detail, but you have to do it very quickly in the exam. Tends to bring out investors to pick through the reins, looking for bargains. Yes, bargains question જેમ બોલાય છે વર્ડ એ જ રીતે સ્પેલ થશે બાર BAR gains GAINS, right? Then decisions by investors that sellers got a little carried away with things, so the buyers have lifted. Have છે has hoy had hoy, the perfect tense, which means you have to apply past participle here. Most likely અહીંયા શું આવશે? Noun પણ આવી શકે have પછી, but ideally if it is not a noun form, if it is a verb form, then you have to make sure કે એ V3 ના ફોર્મમાં હોય. past participle એટલે DED વાળું ફોર્મ generally આવશે. એન્ડ ઓવરસીઝ માર્કેટની વાત થઈ હતી, યુરોપિયન માર્કેટ્સ એટલે એની પણ શેર માર્કેટ્સની વાત હતી. ઓવરસીઝ, સી ઉપરથી ઓવરસીઝ, તો યુ ઓલ્સો મેક શ્યોર કે યુ ટાઈપ ઇટ કરેક્ટલી. અને પ્લન્જ, રાઈટ, અરાઉન્ડ 9%, તો એનો જમ્પ હતો, 9%નો પ્લન્જ હતો, રાઈટ. સબમિટ ઇટ. યા ફૂલ ઓન આનું કન્ટ્રીબ્યુશન, બીકોઝ યુ આર રાઇટિંગ એન્ડ લિસનિંગ, you are going to get marks in both your writing section and your listening section. Okay, let's do one more. Click.
All around the world, significant parts of our cultural heritage are threatened by pollution, neglect, carelessness, and greed. In learning the importance of our history, we come to understand the need to protect significant remains from the past so that future generations can come to understand their heritage.
Right. Now threaten, generally threaten સંભળાય લોકોને અને threaten લખી નાખે સ્પેલિંગ. પહેલા તો threat ઉપરથી આવે threaten, તો આ થઈ threaten. હવે મેં એમાં પાછું ed લગાવ્યું તો threatened. You have to be very careful. એક તો કા વોલ્યુમ વધારે રાખો, હેડફોન હશે જ હાઈ નોઇઝ કેન્સલેશન વાળા, હાઈ ગુડ ક્વોલિટીના તમને હેડફોન એક્ઝામમાં મળશે. while you practice you need to make sure કે you do the same, but also આ ગ્રામર ફિટ છે કે નહીં અહીંયા જોવાનું રાઇટિંગ પછી. ઓલ અરાઉન્ડ ધ વર્લ્ડ significant parts of our cultural heritage are threatened by pollution, which means this is a passive voice sentence. Passive voice માં verb નું form હંમેશા past participle v3 ના form માં જ આવશે. તો are threatened, not threatened. Okay, threat THREAT થાય, કોઈને ભયમાં મૂકવું, ભય નાઉન ફોર્મ, એનું વર્બ ફોર્મ થાય થ્રેટન, અને એનું પાસ્ટ પાર્ટિસિપલ અથવા પાસ્ટ ફોર્મ થશે થ્રેટન ઇન બોથ ધ કેસીસ, રાઈટ? થ્રેટન બાય પોલ્યુશન. નેગ્લેક્ટ બીજું શું હતું? કેરલેસનેસ. તો કેર CARE, એના ઉપરથી કેરલેસ, રાઈટ? અને કેરલેસ ઉપરથી પછી કેરલેસનેસ. આવી રીતે વર્ડ ફોર્મેશન થશે. લેસમાં LESS, નેસમાં NESS. થર્ડ વન વોઝ રિમેઇન, સિગ્નિફિકન્ટ રિમેઇન્સ, કે જે બાકી બચ્યું છે તે રિમેઇન્સ. બી વેરી કેરફુલ in this type of answers when you put just generation, for example, તો future generation એક જ ના હોય. We are not going to so apply certain logic as well, કે generations હોય કે generation હોય, તમને ક્લિયરલી સંભળાણું નથી, then you would say generations, કારણ કે ફ્યુચરની generations એક નહીં, બધી generationsની વાત છે અહીંયા. ઓકે, સબમિટ કરો. યસ. Okay, continue to the next one. Families.
Families are always related to the economy, the politics, the culture of the society. In herding societies, young people go out when they're 10 or 12 years old and they hang out with the sheep or the goats or whatever the herd is. That produces a kind of a loose bond between the pre-adolescents and their parents. In industrial societies, we tend to keep kids in school for longer, and then college is that point when they might break, or after college, depending on what they're doing. In agrarian societies, families have lots of kids and put them to work. They structure themselves as large families and put them all together in one home. The main point is that families are not separate from society. Families and the economy and the politics are all wrapped up all together.
Right, interesting. Herding સમજાણું હતું, પણ why I chose this herd instead of HEARD? So understanding the context of the audio lecture will always help you. તમે blindly ખાલી word સાંભળીને આમાં મૂકી દેશો. So there are certain words which are called homonyms in English language. Homonyms have similar pronunciation, but their meaning differ completely. જેમ કે આ એક herding છે, બીજું herding છે. આ herd અને આ herd બંનેની વાત કરીએ આપણે, for example, right? So they are different herds. So some people will write this herding, some people will write this herding, some people will come up with something totally different. So how to address this? આમાં કેમ ડિસાઇડ કરું કે આ જ આવશે? તો આ વાંચો નીચે અને pay attention. Whatever you are writing and listening, always pay attention. Reading is important here. Herd is, તો આ herd અહીંયા આપી દીધું આપણને હિન્ટ. herd એટલે પશુનું જે ધણ હોય, પશુધનની વાત છે. તો આ herd એટલે સાંભળવાનું ભૂતકાળ થાય, હિયરનું herd, એ herd નથી, right? herding societies. Young people go out when they are 10 or 12 years old and they hang out with the sheep or the goats. તો આ પશુધનની વાત છે. The produce that produces a kind of a loose bond. હવે lose માં પણ બે છે, એ હોમોનિમ છે. LOSE lose, સોરી, LOSE lose અને LOOSE. તો lose bond એટલે બહુ સ્ટ્રોંગ નહીં, એનું ઓપોઝિટ. સ્ટ્રોંગનું ઓપોઝિટ લૂઝ આવશે. આ વાળું લૂઝ નહીં આવે, આ વાળું લૂઝ થાય હારી જવું. ઇન્ડિયા ઓર લેટ્સ સે ઇન્ડિયા મેડ પાકિસ્તાન લૂઝ ધેર ગેમ, ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ. તો એ લૂઝમાં આવશે, આ લૂઝ નહીં આવે, આમાં આ વાળું ડબલ ઓ વાળું લૂઝ આવશે. રાઈટ. હવે અહીંયા હર્ડિંગ સોસાયટીની વાત કરી, તો એવી જ પછી ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીયલ સોસાયટીઝની વાત કરી. તો દે આર કમ્પેરિંગ ડિફરન્ટ સોસાયટીઝ હિયર. તો ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી નાઉન ફોર્મ, રાઈટ, એનું વર્ડ ફોર્મેશન, એમાંથી વાય રિપ્લેસ કરીને IAL કરો તો ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીયલ, that becomes adjective form of the same word. Industrial societies we tend to keep. And finally I શું કીધું? The structure themselves, they structure themselves as large families and put them all together in one home. And finally શું હતું? Families and the economy and the politics are all wrapped up. બધા એક તાના બાનામાં ગૂંથાયેલા હોય છે. They are all connected as one, wrapped up. Wrap, WRAP, પણ જ્યારે ED લાગે પાછળ ત્યારે WRAPP થઈ જશે. So yeah, Good one. So this is how you address this type of questions. Pay attention to what you are hearing. Pay attention to the context in which it is written. Pay attention to what is written before and after the blank, and also pay attention to the lines where there is no blank, because they will always give you hints like this where you can spot your answer. Okay, so this is it from my side for this particular episode. We'll meet again with different question type in next episode. Till then, like this, share and subscribe. Thank you.